Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's been a while, a long time since I posted on this channel, but I am doing it again because I went to my first tournament for Warhammer in, blimey, it's been 4 years, I think. And so my first tournament of 10th edition as well, which is very cool. And so I thought I'd make a little tournament after action report to talk about what I learned and how I did at the tournament over the weekend. So I unfortunately did not take any pictures over the course of the games. So instead, I'm not sure what's going to be playing over this, but anyway, so this tournament was a 2-day GT style event. It was 3 rounds on day 1, 2 rounds on day 2. There was about 28 players, I think, all things considered, and there was quite a wide spread of factions represented. For the Chaos factions, we had 2 Chaos Space Marine players, a World Eaters, and 2 Death Guard. For the Xenos, there was, I think, about 3 Tau Empire, at least 3 Necrons. There was an Eldar, there was a League of Votann player. That might have been it for Xenos factions, actually. There was no Dark Elder. There was no Orcs. There was a lot of Imperium. There was at least 3 Custodes. There was 2 Sisters. There was a Guard player. There was a Blood Angels player. There was 3 or 4 just Space Marine players of various chapters. There was a Black Templars, a Salamanders, a Ravenwing. And I think that was it for factions represented. So quite a wide display. Yeah, noticeably absent was Thousand Suns, Chaos Demons, Orcs, and Dark Elder were the notable absences there, in my opinion. There was a lot of like Space Marine chapters that weren't represented, but there was a lot of Space Marines. So anyway, oh, there was 2 Grey Knights players as well. That's what I'm forgetting. So quite a wide spread. And I was playing my Chaos Space Marines of the Black Legion, not that Legion rules actually matter anymore. And my list was decent, but not optimized. I don't own a number of the optimized units for Chaos Space Marines. I did not own a Master of Possessions at the time, because they're just never in stock. I do have a conversion now that's been approved by the local TOs that I can use, but at the time I didn't have one. And I don't own Nurglings, despite playing Chaos Demons mainly in 8th edition, but my demons are all Tzeentch and Khorne, so no Nurglings, which meant that I was playing a little bit underpowered from what you would want to play. Also notably for this, this tournament was had a couple of inconsistent rules, in the sense that like the Custodes book came out the first day of the tournament, so they were using their old rules, so they were much better. But we also were not using the most recent balanced data slate, because the lock-in for the lists happened a few days before that, which meant that the rules we were using was the previous point costs, which meant my army was also quite underpowered because my roster went down by 50 to 100 points, at least, thanks to the balanced data slate. So yeah. So what did I take to the tournament? That's a good question. So I was playing a somewhat thematic Black Legion army. Now, I am playing currently in a narrative Crusade campaign where my list is a lot more flavorful, as in I have Terminators and Terminator Commanders, like Chaos Lords and Sorcerers and Terminator Armor, and I have some of the more fun Demon Engines and things like that. This list was a lot more just kind of good stuff. So we had, in the HQ slots, we had a Chaos Lord, a Master of Executions. They were in the same squad, and they were with a unit of 5 Chosen, with all the bells and whistles, and they were in a Chaos Rhino, all undivided. We then had Fabius Bile, who is a really good unit that I think is extremely underrated, and he was with 10 Legionaries in a Rhino, all kitted out for melee combat. I then had 2 10-man Chaos Cultist squads with the Mark of Khorne. I had 2 5-man Raptor squads with Double Melter, a Power Fist, and a Plasma Pistol with Mark of Tzeentch for those sweet 5-up lethals at range. I had a 10-man unit of Possessed with Mark of Slaanesh. I had a 5-man unit of Havocs with las cannons, and then the leader had a plasma gun. I had a Forge Fiend with triple ectoplasma cannons, and they were Mark of Nurgle. I had a 4-man brick of Obliterators with Mark of Tzeentch, so you could respawn them. And 2 Rhinos. I think that was it. So overall, we're missing a few noticeable units, as in the Master of Possessions was noticeably absent, Nurglings were noticeably absent, and also Predators were noticeably absent. I'm not a huge fan of tanks, so my personal collection doesn't have a whole lot of tanks in them. I'm much more of an infantry and close combat kind of guy, so I like demon engines, and I like monsters, and I like melee troops and transports, but I don't know many tanks. That will probably change because Chaos Vindicators are really good now, but yeah. So noticeably, and one thing I learned through this is that I do not have enough anti-tank. My anti-tank capabilities are okay, but as we'll see going forward, they were not enough. Because I forgot to mention one very representative faction at this tournament that I forgot in the little preamble. There were 3 Imperial Knights players as well. No Chaos Knights, just triple Imperial Knights, which was quite the spectacle. And there was 2 knight-on-knight matchups, I think, at various points. So lots of knight-on-knight violence was happening at this tournament. But anyway, and so yeah, that was my list. As far as the sort of lay of the land, I would say this was pretty competitive. I would say there are a lot of very good players in the Ottawa area. That's where this took place. There are a lot of very good players, a lot of long-time players as well, with multiple armies, meaning that they can pick and choose basically what they play based on the meta if they really want to. Yeah, there are a lot of good players. There was also there wasn't a whole lot of what I'd say were like fluffy bunnies. There was probably like 1 or 2 that I think were just like basically free wins if you went against them. Everybody was kind of good. Mostly knew their rules and knew the meta. So it was a pretty cutthroat event, I will be honest with you. Now, going into this, I really wanted, in a perfect world, to go 3-2. I wanted that positive win record. At the very least, I wanted to win a game on each day, and failing that, I just wanted to win a game. If I didn't win a game, I was going to be kind of upset. But in like the minimum I really wanted was 2 wins, and then what I really wanted was 3-2. That was what I was aiming for. So round 1, we were against the Elder, which is kind of like two has-beens trying to relive the glory days of this edition. Neither Chaos Space Marines nor Elder are in a great spot, in my opinion, right now. Although CSM is probably a lot better given the data slate, but at the time of this tournament, not great spot. And the first round was Hammer and Anvil deployment with Chilling Reign. Every game in this tournament was Chilling Reign. And Supply Drop was the mission, which is the one where you have an Alpha and an Omega objective. And the Alpha objective disappears on round 4. And every objective but the Omega objective disappears on round 5. So basically, now the Omega objective in this game was the middle one, which meant there was going to be a brutal fight over it going into the turns. Now, the Elder list, I didn't have pictures or write down what it was. It was Ynnari, so he did some Dark Elder units in there as well. To my memory, he had the Ynnari Elf Lady with a unit of Guardians. He had some Rangers. He had 2 units of Scourges from the Dark Elder book. He had some kind of Elder Walker. He had 2 transports. One could deep strike and one was just like a tank thing. He had some Void Dragons. He had some Dark, what are they called? Dark Reapers. He had some, I think they were Howling Banshees, but just a very old model. And I'm trying to remember everything he had. He had no avatar. He had some other characters. He had like a character on a jet bike. He had a few bits here and there as well. I'm not amazingly familiar with the Elder. But anyway. And so the game, I will give you a little hint. It was a very close game. Very, very close. Because it was WTC scoring, it was actually an 11-9 score differential. It's done on points differential. With, 10-10 being a tie, and then 20-0 being the biggest win or loss you can get. Yes, so the total victory points for the game was 50 to 41. So there was a 9-point differential. So very, very close game going on here. And so basically, I can't remember a blow by blow here, but by the end of the game, there were basically no Elder left on the board at all. Pretty much all the Elder had been killed by the end of turn 5. I think all they had left was the unit of Guardians with the Ynnari lady, and I think they had 1 or 2 Swooping Hawks. I think they had like 2 Swooping Hawk units and maybe some, I think they had a unit of Dark Reapers maybe, but the rest of the army had been completely destroyed. And the Chaos we still had quite a lot. We had Cultists, we had Raptors, we had Fabius Bile and his unit of Legionnaires, we had Obliterators, I think we even still had a Forge Fiend as well. So we were still in quite a strong spot. And we dominated the primary of the mission. We ended with 23 to his 10. It was not a very high-scoring game, I will be completely honest with you. Not a very high-scoring game at all. It was very close. My opponent was really... he's an old-timer. I actually recognise him from my very first ever 40k tournament back when I was like 16. So almost 10 years ago. Well, 8 years ago. But anyway. So he's been around for a long time. And his mechanics were down. His screening was really good. His move blocking was on point. Like the guy was definitely what he was doing. The difference was I think I had more reps with Chaos than he did with Elder. But I think like I don't know what his main faction is, but because he has a lot of different factions. But anyway, so I did dominate the primary, which was kind of to be expected with all this power armor running around. Now this is where things get really dicey. The Elder had 30 secondary. You know how much I had? 8. Yes. I will explain. This is the worst luck I've ever had for the tactical missions deck. We were both doing tactical objectives. Oh my goodness. I just could not complete any of the stuff that I drew. It was absolutely brutal. And so, for example, I drew all of the like kill units and take objectives off of him stuff on like turn 1 and 2. But then on turn 4 and 5, I was drawing all the deployed teleporter, getting board edges, do actions, stuff like that. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is unreal. Now, I know I'm complaining about luck here. If I'd had better luck, I would have won for sure. It would have been still very close. But like, I just dominated the primary completely. Dominated the primary. But my secondaries, I just could not score them. I've been better off going fixed in this. Not that I realised this. Now, I did make a big tactical error. I actually made quite a few tactical errors on turn 1. Some of them was in movement and stuff like that. I really overexposed my Chosen and Chaos Lord, and only the Chaos Lord survived on 1 wound, and which was really stupid. I also, on turn 1, I drew an objective, which I believe was Storm Hostile, and I got rid of it because I couldn't score it and I wanted the command point, but I was such an idiot because I knew I was obviously going to be able to score that one later, which is one thing I learned in this tournament really is it's better to keep one that you know you can score than draw into one that you maybe can score, which of course I just didn't, and it was just brutal. But anyway, so that was round 1. It was a very close game, and it was still a very fun game, and it was fun to play against Elder. I haven't played against this edition yet, so very, 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 very close. Very unfortunate that it went the way it did. Round 2 was kind of, for me, was kind of a blowout. I played against this Space Marine list, and now this list was really cool. It was a Space Shark list, devoted to Space Sharks. Like he had everything done up with the shark insignias. It was all painted. He even had his converted not chaos at all. This converted Space Marine captain with like a trident in Terminator armor. Really cool. Obviously, a labour of love for this player. But the problem was, I took one look at it and I was like, this is a really bad list. Like, it's got something there. Basically, it consisted of a Land Raider, a Whirlwind, some other Space Marine tank. I think it was a Predator, but it might have been some special kind of thing. Anyway, some other kind of tank. And then he had just a lot of tactical Marines, which seemed really weird. And then he had like some Devastators, he had some Terminators. but there was no Primaris at all, and so it was just kind of obvious that like this was not a great list going in. Which, okay, spoiler alert, I won this one 20-0 was the points differential, and if I look at the actual score, so the Space Marines got 6 primary and 5 secondary for a total score of 21 with the battle ready. Chaos got 33 on primary and 38 on secondary for a respectable 81. Yeah, for a respectable 81 points. Yeah, this was brutal. I think he was tabled by the end. If he wasn't tabled, he had like a unit of tactical marines left or something like that. Yeah, it wasn't a game really. It was just an absolutely brutal blowout. Now, to be fair to this guy, he actually didn't come last in the tournament. He came second last. Leagues of Votann actually came last, so good on him. He did get a couple of points here and there. So he didn't actually lose. But yeah, it was very obvious he was not really a competitive 40k player. He was not at all prepared for this tournament. And anyway, he was a great guy though, and his army looked really cool. But it was just like, I can't really go for blow by blow here. It was just an absolute blowout. Like, my list wasn't top tier, but it was pretty optimized, and it was pretty, and like I knew what I was doing with it for the most part, and it just kind of. It's a tournament, so you're not going to play it easy on anybody, you know? And so anyway, so I got my win for round 1. Hey. And then I went into round 3, the last game of day 1 of the tournament. Oh, actually, sorry. What was even the mission in that? I never told you the mission. The mission on game 2 was Crucible Battle Deployment with Vital Ground as the mission, so sorry. Anyway, so we entered game 3, and I was 1-1. Which was good. I was on track for my 3-2 goal here. Unfortunately, so game 3, it's the last game of the day, and everyone's tired. Everybody is, making mistakes. You're tired out after 2 games of 40k. It's a lot. And so the final one was Crucible Battle Deployment again, and it was the Ritual. Everybody's least favourite mission, except for Servo Skulls. I think Servo Skulls is actually, people really don't like Servo Skulls, but the Ritual, it is, it's not great. I've never actually played the Ritual, because normally when I played, like most of my games have been in a narrative campaign that I played this edition, so the missions are preset. Even when I played like pickup games, we'd normally just taken the Ritual out because nobody wants to play it. And I was playing against the Adeptus Custodes, which was a really bad matchup for me. Now, my opponent, was the first thing he said was, "Oh, you're going to be in for a rough game, because I'm a really bad matchup for you." And yes, he was. So this was, as I said at the beginning of the video, we weren't using the new Custodes rules yet, because they literally came out the day of the tournament. So they were all really good, which is why a lot of people were running Custodes, because it was like the last hurrah before they became, like, shit. And his list was basically the Custodes net list, I think. The only thing he was missing was, like, an assassin. I'm not very familiar with the Custodes, but... So he just had a lot of these Custodian dudes with a couple of characters and some Sisters of Silence to, like, hold the backline or something. Very strong list. I looked around the tournament, and there was, like, I think 3 or 4 Custodes players, and they were all playing the same list. So clearly very good. Now, the Ritual is also really good for Custodes. Now, what I know they normally do, though, is they would take fixed missions. This guy did not, to be fair to him. He did take tactical, which... It doesn't matter, he won anyway, spoiler alert, but anyway. And I took tactical because there's really no good secondaries into Custodes. It's like fixed missions in Custodes, except for like maybe like Cleanse in this one for the Ritual. Which I probably should have taken Cleanse and just fucking try to cleanse the objectives I'm making. I still would have lost, but just a lot was working against me here. One, Chaos Marines were not in a good spot in this tournament, because we were using the old data slate, like the post-nerf CSM with the current point cost we weren't in a great spot. Custodians were in a great spot. So that's one. Secondly, the guy who's playing, Sebastian, much better player than I am, for sure. Just just everything. Like, I've been out of 40k for like most of the better part of 4 years, I think now. Really, it's 3 years really. That's what I'd say. I've been sort of 2.5 years maybe. I've been sitting out of 40k. So yeah, I'm very into practice really in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, so you know, the skill diff was massive between us, which obviously matters in a game like this. And then there was also the matchup. I was playing a very melee-centric Chaos Space Marine list, which is sort of how you're meant to play Chaos, but like, Custodians just do that, but better. Which one thing he said to me is like, well, you're kind of a melee army, you're going to probably lose to me. And I was like, But the problem is I'm not a horde melee army that can overwhelm him. I'm kind of another elite melee army that's just worse, so unfortunate. And also, and I know Luck wouldn't have changed this game, but Luck was not on my side this game, I will be honest. I normally try to be pretty, I don't like to blame my losses or wins really, but mainly my losses on Luck. That can contribute, but normally there's mistakes that you make as a player that more than make up for Luck. I really hold to it that bad players lose because of luck, and good players lose because of skill. That's normally, and that's just a mindset thing. When I was a teenager, obviously, I used to think luck was a huge part of these games, which it is, but it isn't as big as you think it is. When I was a teenager playing these games, I blamed luck, I'd get salty. Nowadays, I don't get salty, really. I try not to, anyway, because it's just a game, and I don't want to get tilted. That's a big one. You get tilted, you lose, right? If you can keep positive, which comes back in my final game, the tilt-proof attitude won me my final game, spoiler alert, of this tournament. But, whereas some players will just start blaming luck and complaining and all that. If you can really honestly look at the games and think, this is where I made a mistake, this is where my opponent's better than me, you're going to improve for next time, and that's what I tried to do in this tournament. I think I learned a lot from this tournament. So, going into the game, anyway, the Ritual, bad matchup, Custodians are great at the Ritual, and I kind of just tried to kill him and do secondaries, and it just didn't really work. Yeah, and it just didn't really work out too well for me. Also, yeah, as I was saying, luck was just not on my side. Like, the 4-ups on the Custodians, he was just making them all. He made so many 4-ups. Feel No Pains, Invul Saves, whatever, he was just making them all. And there was a time, and I wasn't, was the problem. Like, for example, I Obliterators got ran into, they failed like 6 4-ups at once and just got wiped, basically, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, it's just gonna be like that. Like, my Obliterators unloaded into a squad of Custodians, did no damage. Nothing. They weren't even indirect firing, they were like straight shooting them point blank. Normally, Obliterators destroy anything that they see, but these guys just... They made all the Feel No Pains, all the involves, and then counter-charged and just killed the Obliterators in one turn of combat. It was like, just like that, and I was like, well, okay, this isn't going to happen, right? It isn't going to happen. I lost 20-0. The final points was bad. The Custodians got 50 on primary, 39 on secondary, for a total of 99 points at Battle Ready. So almost maximum points. The Black Legion got 15 on primary and 10 on secondary for a total of 35 points. Yeah, it was a blowout. I lost badly. I don't think I made too many mistakes. I think I definitely did make some mistakes, but I don't think I made too many mistakes. I think I should have gone fixed objectives. I mean, it was a big mistake, but I just think my list just couldn't deal with Custodians. Like, I just didn't have the firepower. I didn't have the durability. I was kind of relying on my sort of basic legionaries and possess and things to be able to kill most people's shock troops, and they just couldn't against Custodians. And yeah, it wasn't really working too well for me, and it was a blowout. But it was a fun game though. It was fun because like my opponent and I kind of made it enjoyable. My opponent was he was very chill, and I didn't get salty because there's no point. Like, it's just a game. So I was very much I was just getting into it and praying to the dark gods and going for glory and all that kind of thing. It was a fun game, but it really felt like, we just trounced the space sharks, so the Custodians were like, oh, we'll fucking kill these Black Legionnaires, put them in their place before we leave the planet, and they did. So I went back home that night 1-2, which wasn't great. Very close loss, very big win and a very big loss, so I was kind of neutral. I was about middle of the pack in the tournament. And my next game. So coming back fresh for day 2, I knew I was going into another bad matchup for me. I was playing against one of the Imperial Knights. So yeah, going into round 4. I was against Imperial Knights. Now, I've never liked Knights. I've always disliked this army. They're just a stat check, really. What it comes down to, do you have enough anti-tank to kill all the Knights? Now, normally, the rule of thumb is, the optimum anti-tank you need is, can you kill 1 fat Knight a turn, or 2 little Knights a turn? If you can't do that, your army doesn't have anti-tank. Now, in theory, my army did have just about enough anti-tank to do that. Not reliably, but it did. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, it wasn't enough anti-tank. This game was also very close, though. It was another 11-9 loss for me going into this. Now, I picked, for the first time ever, fixed objectives, which was bring it down and deploy teleport to Homer. The reason I took bring it down, obviously every time you kill something you get VP. I took teleport to Homer because I had 2 units of Raptors. Now, these were very terrain-dense boards because they're WTC style boards with preset terrain layouts. There was no player-placed terrain, which meant that they were extremely dense, and there was a lot of line-of-sight blocking, a lot of manoeuvring involved. And I realised, I was like, well, I can just drop a unit of Raptors into his deployment zone on turn 2 and score behind a ruin or something so he can't see me, and just start deploying teleport homers. But if he goes and kills it, I have another squad of Raptors I can bring in turn 3 that can just keep doing it. And so he doesn't have enough models to screen me out effectively, because if he needs like a minimum of 3 baby knights to sit back in his deployment zone to screen me out. In some games that would work because they can just shoot you with your autoguns, but in this map they had to move to get on objectives and get onto, to get line of sight. So I was like, well, this actually kind of is good, because every time I kill something I get VP, and I'm basically going to max out teleport to Homer, because it was laid out, I could get my Chaos Rhino into the middle of the board, or one of my Chaos Rhinos, get into the middle of the board on turn 1 and deploy Homer there because they have 12-inch movement. So, or they could move. Even not like I measured it, they could get on, but even if they couldn't, you could drive him, and then the people inside could get out 3 inches away from him, get on the center objective, deploy teleport home there. So you could basically max it out. I think I almost did max it out. I think I was like I was missing like 1, I think, point on deploy teleport home that I could have got. He took tacticals because there's no really good fixed objectives to take about my list. Like there's only 3 characters, so the maximum assassinate you can get is 15, and there's only 3 vehicles / monsters, so the max you can get on like bring it down is like 9 or something, so you basically have to take, also have really good screening, and he had no deep strike, so you can't. Anyway, he took tactical objectives. So the missions for round 4 was sweeping engagement deployment and priority targets. That was the mission, and it was a very close game. So okay. In the end, the Knights had 50 on primary, and 50 on primary, and 32 on secondary, for a total victory score of 92 with battery. Respectable. The Black Legion had 32 on secondary, and 40 on primary, for a total of 82. So very close game. Very, very close game. Now, here's where things get a little bit salt-inducing. Now, I didn't get salty, obviously. I didn't even know the score going in. He was keeping score for me. I knew what my points were. I didn't even know what his were. So it was at the end, I was like, so he even won this? And it was like, I knew it was close. And he was like, yeah, I won by 10 points. I was like, shit, whatever. And he asked me, so it's like, because I said to him, I'd never played against Knights this edition, right? The last time I played against Knights was 8th edition. And most of the time back then, people were just allying them in. And so he said to me, what do you think of Knights? And I was very honest with him. I said, I'll be honest with you, I've never liked Knights. In a tournament, I don't care, because everyone's going to be running degenerate bullshit, right? It's like, but like, I said to him, it's like, normally if I have a choice, I would choose not to play against Knights. I don't think they're very fun. They're a basic stat check. Do you have enough anti-tank or do you not? And that's what he said. He's like, yeah, I realised you didn't have that much anti-tank, because all they really have is the Obliterators, the Havocs, and the Forge Fiend, which even then the Forge Fiend isn't great anti-tank. I guess I had the Raptors too, with the Melters, could get some damage through. but really wasn't enough. And so at the end of the game, I had basically been tabled. I had a few units here and there, but I was basically tabled, which is normally what happens against knights. You're going to get tabled. It's can you get enough secondaries and primaries scoring before they kill you. But I had killed... I had killed Canis Rex. I had killed, I think, 4 baby knights. He had his big warlord knight. I'd never even touched it. There's no point. And, but here's the real kicker. 2 of the baby knights left were on 1 wound. Which would have been a tie. If I'd got 1 of those, it would have been a tie. For 10-10 WTC. My goodness, that's annoying. One of them slinked out of a combat with Fabius Bile's unit after Fabius got killed, finally, just for the second time, by the warlord at 1 wound. But I had a squad of raptors on the one on his home objective. They basically had flown over there at the end of turn 4 to try and storm hostile. Because that's one of the... Because that's... no, he had defend stronghold, sorry. So I was trying to get it off of him. So from scoring it. Now, ironically, if I'd killed this knight, I would have won the game. I was didn't realise at the time, but if I'd killed this knight, then he would have not scored storm hostile as protect objective, sorry, and I would have got an extra 4, so we would have tied, I think, actually. So never mind. But anyway, this was huge anyway. And so the raptors flew over, they double melted it, they did some damage, then they charged. Now, normally, you wouldn't expect raptors to kill it, but I did have a power fist in here, and you can dark pact for lethal hits, so it's kind of like... I think 3 full combats this lasted. The power fist guy could not take the last wound off of him. It was brutal. And, yeah, so I ended up losing to knights, and I was like, oh no, I can't go 3-2 anymore. Very sad. You know what's kind of funny? Is I did score higher. I placed higher than the knights player that beat me in the tournament, though, so hey, guess I got the last laugh. And then I went into round 5, the final round of the tournament. But at this point, chill, because there's no hope of winning. I wasn't seriously going to win anyway, but, like, you know what I mean? And I played against a Salamanders list, which was great. It was really nicely painted, and it's kind of cool because I tried to paint a lot of the different... Because all the Chaos Space Marine miniatures have the, like, Space Marine helmets and stuff, or Space Marines crushed under their bodies, under their boots and stuff like that. Space Marine bodies. And so it's a lot of stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I try to paint all the legions, or like the original legions. And so it was kind of neat because Fabius Bile's assistant, I have him taking a gene seed out of a salamander, which I showed to the guys. Like, hey, look, it's a salamander. Right, and he had this really thematic, really cool... it was this detachment that was all about assault weapons, so he had just a ton of flamers, which made being in a melee army kind of difficult, actually, because there's a lot of good Overwatch. And everything was assault, so you could, like, advance and, like, do all the secondaries, and it was quite a cool army. It didn't save him. And, I also think this guy's a Death Guard main normally, so, like, Salamanders is a second army. So he was a little bit less familiar with the rules, but at the same time, I used to be a Demons main back in 8th, and so playing Chaos Space Marines in tournaments is kind of new for me, because I just don't like modern Demons very much. I much prefer the old school, how they were in 8th. And we were on one of the bottom tables. So I ended up winning this game 13-7, and so the mission was it was search and destroy deployment with taken hold as the mission, and so it was quite a close game though. Really, it was a pretty close game. It was a good game, I think, and so the Salamanders did get to go first, and they scored a respectable 30 on primary, and a 24 on secondaries. We both used tacticals. The Black Legion, on the other hand, scored 27 on secondary, so we barely beat the Salamanders, but we did score a very, very respectable 45 on primary. We almost maxed it, because the max primary you can get on this mission is... Oh, it might actually... It's 55. I think 55 is the max you can get on this one. So we almost maxed it anyway for a 82-64 victory for the Black Legion, which is... It was a good way for me to end the tournament. Now, to give some play-by-play on this, basically, turn 1 and 2 did not go very well for me at all. And my opponent thought he'd won. And this is what I mean by the tilt thing happened. My opponent was acting like he'd won, basically. He wasn't been, like, rude about it or anything, but it was very obvious that he thought he'd won this. And, what I mean by this is, he kind of, like, he's made comments like, oh, I'm sorry, like, someone must be like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. And so basically, like, on turn 1, I set up this charge. He'd brought some of his guys forward, his warlord and, it wasn't his warlord, just one of his commanders with, like, a big unit blade guard. And there was a big land raider with, like, this massive marine killing flamer on it and all this shit. Anyway, and I was like, well, my possessor are deployed on this side of the board. And so I sort of ran them, and I was like, here's the thing. I had the possessor hiding behind a building, and I was like, well, I can charge your blade guard through the wall, and you can't see me, though, so there's no overwatch. And I was like, this is great. And it was like a 6 or 7 inch charge, right? Like, it's quite doable. And so I roll it, I fail, I spend the CP to reroll, I still fail. The possessor failed a 6 or 7 inch charge, and I was like, And they kind of got killed the next round. They got shot by the flamer, and then they got charged with a blade guard. Now, I did pop the Eternal Hate strat, so they did get to fight back. They killed a few blade guard, but, like, really, that was a huge blow. There was almost 300 points of my army that just did nothing, basically, and burned 2 CP and a round of shooting and fighting, so they did kind of earn the points back. But anyway, and then to make matters worse, on turn 2, Fabius Biles' unit got out of their Rhino to storm an objective, and they declared a double charge. Now, the first unit they were charging was within 3 inches of them, because it was one of these Space Marine guys who can deep strike within 3 inches of someone. So he was one. And a little bit behind them was a unit that had been in a transport that I destroyed, and gotten out. And it was a 4-inch charge. So I was like, well, I'll declare the multi. It's 4 inches. Who cares? And I rolled a 3. So Fabius and his unit was stuck there like idiots, just in the middle of the battlefield. And I was like, oh no. And so at that point, the mindset was obviously there on my opponent that he'd basically won the game. And I think this kind of make him take his guard down. Made him take his guard down because he just kept making comments about that. And I was like, yeah. And I was keeping very chipper. He's like, I appreciate your chipper attitude. And I was like, yeah, for a few reasons. One, I try not to get salty. Like, there's nothing worse than a salty opponent, right? Like, it's just miserable to play against. And secondly, this game's not over. This game is far from over. Luck is part of the game, right? And it's like, I'm not going to let that ruin it. You know, it's like, I can win it. I know I can win this. This is an easy matchup for me. Space Marines is a great matchup for my list. And so I was like, this is fine. I'm still scoring my secondaries. I'm still scoring all my secondary that I'm pulling, basically. And I'm getting good primary. This is fine. Even if Fabius Biles' unit dies, which is very unlikely they're going to, because keep in mind, Fabius makes those Marines toughness 5. Now, this is a mostly Flamer-based list. So, those are the Marines with Flamers, they're wounding on 5s. And they're dealing like 1 damage. So it's like, well, you're going to kill like 3 or 4 Marines. And then my opponent made a massive mistake. He decided to charge Fabius' unit with the Flamer Marines, who did have, in fairness, a very killy close combat character in there. But Fabius can cancel out an attack each round, and then you're just fighting toughness 5 Space Marines with with like strength 4 no AP attacks. You're not doing much to them. And they're going to turn around, they have like heavy weapons, accursed weapons, chainswords. Fabius himself just mulches Marines. Right? It's like, it is what it is. And yeah, basically, we pulled our win, and we almost tabled them in the end. The Salamanders were almost tabled. They had a few units here and there. And my opponent was starting to get salty. Quite visible. He was trying not to be fair to the guy, but he was clearly annoyed. And basically what we said was that turn 1 and 2 were really slanted in his favour. I was failing very easy charges. I was losing a lot of units. Turn 3 and 4, really? Man, I don't know what I'd done to appease the Chaos Gods here. I had debased myself before Slaanesh, being humiliated before Slaanesh in so many games that, I finally had the will of the Chaos Gods. The ascension was mine, and I managed to pull out a win. And yeah, it was brutal. By turn 5, the game was over. He barely had anything left. And that's how the game is sometimes. But that's what I mean. If I tilted there, I would have lost. I would have lost, for sure. If he'd not got cocky, I might have still lost. Who knows? And so that was it. I did get my 2 and 3. which was the minimum I wanted. And I came, like, I think I came in the top 20. I think I came like 17th or 18th out of 28, which is okay. It's whatever. It's not a great show. But I had a lot of fun. Played against some great opponents. And really, I learned a lot. And there's a tournament coming up in about 3 weeks' time that I'm going to, which is another big tournament, 2-day GT style event. There's a lot of those around here now. And I'm quite excited, and I'm frantically trying to paint and base enough of my last few. These are my last few Chaos models I even have at this point, because I see there's a few big mistakes I made. Not just in the games. I really try to look back on the games and try and say, okay, where do I think I was lucky or unlucky here? Okay, but remove that luck. What did I do wrong, right? And so the big ones, the Elder, I pitched the wrong objectives. I should have kept different secondaries. That was a huge one. Against the Custodians, I should have taken fixed objectives. Right? Against the Knights, I don't think I did anything particularly wrong against the Knights, really, in game. So, but also my list clearly has problems. It clearly has some problems. It does not have enough anti-tank. The anti-tank is fine. It's good at dealing with armies that have like a few vehicles, like 3 to 5 vehicles. It can deal with. It can deal with, like the Salamanders had a Land Raider and a big Gladiator tank thing. They both died, right? The Space Sharks had 3 big tanks. They all died, right? It's like, but even the Elder had 2 tanks and a Walker. They all died, right? So these armies with like a couple of tanks, yeah, that's absolutely fine. It's the armies with a ton of tanks, like Knights, cannot deal with. I think even the other Chaos Space Marine list that was there was an Iron Warriors list, so he had a lot of tanks. I think I would have been fine with that. It was like a Vindicator and 2 Predators and some Rhinos and stuff. See, I would be able to deal with that. I have enough anti-tank. The Obliterators will shred 1 to 2 Predators a turn. The Las Cannon Havocs can kill them. And even just the close combat, you can just chip them down. But the Custodians, I did not have enough. Yeah, Custodians is just a really bad matchup. Right, it's like, but what mistakes I made? So army construction, I know I messed up. I didn't have my Legionnaires optimized. I'd taken all close combat weapons thinking this is great. No, I should take some special weapons in there. Even Melters seem great with them because they're already really close range. So the Melter guns can punch through heavy infantry, light tanks. I mean, even with Dark Packs, they actually can punch through some heavy tanks as well. But Legionnaires can take auto guns, they can take heavy bolters, they can take las cannons, they can take missile launchers, which are kind of bad in my opinion. But like, I need to really change that. I really need Nurglings. I won't be able to get Nurglings or anything in time for this tournament because they're always out of stock. I did get a conversion of a Master of Possessions approved, so I'll be able to actually have the Feel No Pain and the +1 charge advance on the Possessed. Plus, we're playing with the points with the new points drops. Now, the Orc Codex will come in. However, I think that my list is going to be pretty good against the Orcs. My anti-heavy infantry and anti-infantry capabilities, even in melee, especially in melee, are really good. So I also think there's going to be just a lot less tanks. But yeah, so really I learned a lot from this tournament. It was 2 very close losses, a crushing victory, a crushing loss, and a respectable win. Which is really, I think, a pretty good showing. I'll be back with another tournament report when I finish that one, and we'll see how we got on. Thank you very much. Yeah.